All right, man. We are back for another episode inside the studio with the full crew. Semi post Corona, because I don't think that's gonna be ending for real. But I'm excited to be here with y'all. We got Sunny D in the building.
What's good? What's good?
We got Dre over here.
Oh, what's up, everybody?
Tweezy Chain.
What's good?
The producer in the back. Probably won't say shit, but he laughing.
You ever hit not?
Real talk. I'm really excited for today's episode, man. But before we get into all the juice and the meat of our topics, let's just do a little check-in around the table. Yo, how y'all been, yo? What's good with you, bro?
Hey, man. My legs a little sore after yesterday, man. They advertised 2 miles. It was like 6.
Word.
My knee bothered me a little bit, but I'm still here. I'm still strong.
Yeah, we was fighting for the cause. Yeah. That was good with you, Dre.
Look, I got another level of respect for Martin Luther King. Them niggas was marching in church shoes and
And slippery girls.
I had on bronze and my shit is weak.
Yo, that's perspective for sure, yo. Hey, yo, Tweezy.
Chilling. I appreciate y'all being out there. Sorry I couldn't be there.
That's already.
Had to work for the white man. Anyway, but I can't. On the sidebar, I can't wait to put up the 65-inch TV.
All right, I like that.
Oh, shit.
Hope it's HD and
That 4K?
Oh yes.
Oh, it's
You still watch
4K?
porn on the
Oh,
TV or
yes.
you just...
Oh, man.
well, I've been good.
How you been?
Yeah, it was definitely a good time protesting with y'all, getting out there, see what it looked like, and I was thoroughly surprised. We'll get into that, but I'm definitely just grateful and blessed to still be here for real.
Absolutely.
And for us to be back in the studio, this is dope. I'm excited for the next run. All right, let's get into the quick little topics, updates in the community. First, I wanted to start off with the mayor debate candidate. I'm sorry.
In true Baltimore fashion.
In true Baltimore fashion. So
We got
it
some
started.
scammers.
Yeah, it started. It looked like Sheila Dixon. Looked like she won. Looked like she was winning by a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a lot of debate on the ballots, whether being mailed, people not even getting the right ballots. And the next thing you know, the second runner-up, Brandon Scott, he ended up closing that gap by like less than 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're trying to see what's really about to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this is an interesting run in the Baltimore mayor race. So we definitely want to stay on top of that and see what happens.
I think you said it first, like typical Baltimore fashion, just last minute shit.
Right. It's always something, yo.
Turns, always something.
And it was weird because Brandon Scott, he posted something on Instagram, and it was just like, we not losing hope. We're gonna count every ballot, and after I'm confident that we gonna win. And the next thing you know, them ballots is going up.
Numbers started coming in.
Yo. So he close. We'll see.
Once all the ballots is counted.
But nah, Baltimore loves Sheila Dixon. So
I'm waiting for the Sheila Dixon documentary.
But never mind.
that would be interesting one. Shit, all of Baltimore mayors should have a story to tell. Yeah. Yep. All right. So what else? Anything else? Anybody got something else?
I thought we were just gonna go into our experience
With yesterday.
during the march.
Yeah. So let's give a little backstory on that. We went to the organization. It was organized by the People Progression Party, which is a black led organization. We went out there. How would y'all describe it?
Oh man.
So the organization is black led, but the demonstration didn't feel like it was black led. It was, and albeit we do need allies, but it was a lot of them doing a lot of talking. When I feel like in these type of protests, we need y'all to be silent allies in terms of, the unmelanated, the Caucasians. We need y'all to just be Take the backseat for once.
I was looking for the shea butter section the whole time, the entire time.
It was no coke. It was very little coconut oil.
I mean, yeah, I would say, and when I went out there, I was surprised, but then I understood, like, this march in this time, I guess is, you could say when Jay said we done marching and done kneeling, like that was, everybody really took that and said, like, it's time for the white people to march. And that's what I felt like it was, because they was out there heavy, and the chance that they did, it was weird for me, man.
It was.
Like, just to look around and see all these people saying Black Lives Matter. You really not sure if they really mean it, but you just gotta, accept it for this moment, and like this moment can really change generations.
But you know what? I think about that, and I have to look at it from a different perspective. Is it because we're just not used to it? Like, are we just not used to having allies or having people, maybe white allies actually care? Are we just so used to defending ourselves and having to explain ourselves and educate, everyone else, that there was a little bit of shock when we actually saw, white people, white allies out in droves actually speaking and actually saying not all lives matter, but Black lives matter. I think I had to, sit with that and think about that. Like, you know what? This is probably just shock.
Yeah, it was definitely big shocking for me.
Yeah, it was a shock, but you know what? Seeing the people that, like, when we was walking through like the projects and stuff, like the people in the projects was like, they seemed thankful or grateful that people was out there.
Yeah.
So us being a part of it was weird, but maybe for the people that like wasn't expecting it to happen, they took it a different way.
Yeah.
But also, I think a lot of people was out there just because it's the popular thing to do right now.
Of course.
100%.
Like, people been locked up in their houses for 3-4 months, so they might not really be out there for Black Lives Matter. They just might be out there because you can't go nowhere else right now. So we're going to find a way to be outside.
Yeah. And it was outside deep.
Right. With all the creative chants.
No rhythm to them.
Like, what are we going to say next?
Oh, wow. Now, I wasn't there, but from what I saw, just not even here, but in different countries and cities all over the world.
Shout out to Philly.
Oh, shit. I will say that Baltimore did do a good job of at least being peaceful. As far as, I can't really say the same for certain cities, especially like Los Angeles for sure, New York, stuff like that. But I can understand why people are doing what they're doing, even though they're not Black. Essentially, I think some people got to understand that you got to take the time to notice when someone's trying to help you or hinder. And then from what I saw, like, even when you had different organizations from Black Lives Matter and other things like that, you notice that they were trying to say, no, don't do this, don't do that. But they were like, no, you can't tell us how to protest. But at the same time, we would still get blamed for that. Yeah. So you got to be mindful. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Baltimore did a good job. I'm not saying that they're the only city that did it, but they did a good job just for keeping it peaceful and, not having that riot situation.
Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely proud of the city for not, we lost Freddie Gray like 5 years ago. And that was that shit. Yeah, that was a whole other riot. So not to get to that point again was definitely good to see.
Because it could easily turn into that.
Real quick.
There's a lot of people waiting for it to turn into
It's
that,
actually one bank downtown, like the First National Bank, I think. Mm-hmm. They tried to bring it to there, but I don't think it was successful. Yeah. But that was the only major thing I seen.
Oh. Did you see about the girl who was saying why she wasn't defending George Floyd?
Nah,
I ain't paying attention to none of that ignorance.
Yeah. Yeah. It was of course only like white folks agreed with her. But she made good points, but at the same time I don't agree with her.
The Candace Owens lady, I ain't paying attention to that foolishness.
I don't agree with her. Like I said before, you can't go off of somebody's past regardless of what he was doing. There's still a way to detain someone.
Yeah.
And I get where she was coming from, where he was this, and that, but he was trying to change his life. Maybe he just felt some hard times, whatever. But at the end of the day, he should not have died that way. And I think that's what she's not understanding.
Yeah, there's no excuse for an execution. No excuse for that.
I mean, that can be a good segue into our main topic. We have a guest speaker, our second guest. He called in for us. He's an ex-cop in the state of Maryland. And he has a good perspective. So we wanted to just really talk to him, ask him questions.
Get some expertise.
Get some expertise on how to handle situations dealing with cops, and just how we can maneuver in certain situations. So we'll have that coming up next. All right. So our main topic, our main point of conversation today is really just to learn how to deal with police in a proper manner, given just a lot of situations in the past. Most recently George Floyd, and the many others that just recently lost their lives due to police violence. And with that, we brought our good brother in, Keely, who's an ex-cop. I'm not sure how many years, but he did it, and he really supported our communities, and he's here to us to give us some good insight so we can move accordingly. So I appreciate you being here, Keely.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
Yes,
I appreciate it.
Yes,
What's
sir.
up,
Thank
fam?
you.
And to answer the first question, it was actually 8 years.
8 years. Oh man.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
8 years.
All right.
The better part
In
of
that
the
time.
decade.
Yeah, that's what's
Yeah.
up, yo. 8
Yeah.
years. All
Any
right.
crazy stories?
More than we have time for.
Good answer.
I like that. He said, catch me offline.
Yeah, more than we got time for. That's a whole nother podcast by itself.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, just to really get it started, how do you feel with how are you feeling? I guess, or the news and everything going on, and coronavirus. How's the family?
Family's doing well. For as best as they can be. We, being a black family, this is something that has weighed the George Floyd incident and the police brutality and the systemic racism has been something that has weighed heavily on my family. My dad was very active back in his younger years, as was my mother. So for them to see their son choose the career field of law enforcement,
Yeah.
this always brings up feelings and conversations that I actually am thankful that having had 8 years in law enforcement, I'm able to provide the perspective of not only being a young black man, but also having been a cop in the street, doing the work, and having been a responsible law enforcement officer trying to affect the change that I wanted to see in my role.
Word. Yeah, I definitely, from the beginning I met you, you was a man of integrity, and just you do the 8 years as a police officer. I commend you for that. Just putting
Appreciate
yourself on the line for us. That's huge.
Appreciate
So
that.
just to get started, I really wanted to start with the first question. And this is for all the brothers. Just think of a young man that you might be talking to. What is the right thing to do when you get pulled over by the police or stopped by the police?
So the right thing to do is two things, right? The first thing to do is to comply. When a traffic stop is affected by engaged by a law enforcement officer, a lot of times the training that they have received allows them to have the mindset to be overly cautious. They've gone through training at the academy where they show them these videos of traffic stops that have gone wrong. So nobody wants to affect the traffic stop or initiate a traffic stop and have it be their last traffic stop. Nobody wants to truly die in the line for a traffic stop. So a lot of times law enforcement officers are at a heightened level of anxiety, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to be as cautious as possible. So there are things that they go through, there are tactics that they do in order to be as safe as possible. There's certain reasons why they only come so far up to the window. But that being said, with them being at a higher level of anxiety, not really knowing what they're coming to the window, what's waiting for them at this traffic stop,
Right.
the best thing to do is to be calm and comply and listen, right? Once the initial interaction has subsided, once they realize, okay, this is not going to be a crazy traffic stop, this is not going to be a car chase, or this is not a felon that's on the run that has already said that he's not going back to jail and that this could possibly end up in a gun battle, once they get past that phase and realize, okay, I can now bring things down a notch. I can now kind of calm down a bit. I can now lower my guard a bit and interact, because this is now going to be what some people call a quote unquote routine traffic stop, which in law enforcement, we're taught that there is no such thing as a routine traffic stop. Each traffic stop is different and independent upon its own, different from the last, maybe similar, but different, and you never know which one's going to go completely south. So the first thing you need to do is comply and be calm. They come to the window, let them get their initial speech out. Most cops have a speech that they approach the window or approach you with, where they say, sometimes they say who they are, sometimes they say why they pulled you over, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just go straight into asking you for driver's license and registration. But what's important is for you to make sure that you don't give them any reason, and this is, let me caveat this by saying, I have worked with a lot of law enforcement officers. I've worked with a lot of Caucasian law enforcement officers, and a lot of them were outstanding, by the book cops that had no racial bias. But there are also some that are out there that make the whole industry look bad. So I want to caveat this by saying that. So when they come to the window, let them get their spiel out. Let them get it out, and then when they ask for something, provide it to them. This is not the time to start engaging in a battle, a struggle, or an argument with that law enforcement officer. Let him get to where he needs to get to, which is basically he needs to get to identifying who you are first. And then once that's done, there may be an opening for an engagement where you can say, I was wondering why I was pulled over. I was wondering why I was stopped. If they had not provided that to you before, but it's all about engaging in a respectful manner. And this is on both sides of the coin, right?
Definitely.
So a cop should be professional, right? A cop should be professional, and you can't expect to get respect unless you give it. So I'd say, number one, comply. Number two, be calm. And number three, be respectful. From that point on, it's all about listening and gauging the engagement. Because the ultimate thing, the ultimate idea behind what you are experiencing as the person who's basically being detained during this traffic stop is to make it out of the traffic stop alive.
Right.
So my follow-up question is, what do you do when you have done those two fundamental rules and it still goes left? Because as you see throughout the last couple of years, there have been some that have followed those two fundamental rules and still goes left real quick.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, and this is what I said earlier. majority of law enforcement is by far some of the most selfless people out there, literally willing to put their lives on the line for everyone in the community at any given time. But there are some bad apples out there that really give us a bad name. So say you get pulled over by one of these guys, right? And you can usually tell how this is going to go. It's not really like, oh man, that went left quick. No, it's usually like from the moment that they come to the window, you kind of know, okay, I know what I'm dealing with here. This is when you need to have a course adjustment, right? This is when you need to start to put on your thinking cap and you need to start being very observant, right? Because at this point, say you make it out of this, right? You make it out of this without going in the cuffs. You make it out of this alive, right? Say you make it out of this and you actually have some sort of recourse after this. That's the best possible outcome. But what you need to make sure you do is you start to mentally document, right? Okay, who am I dealing with? This man or woman, this officer is acting in this manner. I have not caused them to do or provided them any reason to escalate, but they are escalating anyways. Therefore, I need to start to understand two things. I need to document mentally. What is this officer's name? Look for a nameplate. Look for a badge. Look for the badge's number. Understand that if you have other passengers with you, they can feel free to document, just as long as it does not hinder the traffic stop. When I say feel free to document, go ahead, it's fine. Pull out your cell phone, but do it in a manner where you're not, quickly rifling through a bag and then giving them a reason to think, oh, they're reaching for something. Now this can go sour really quickly. What you need to do is, if you have it at your disposal, right? Like if it's already in your hand, a lot of us are already on our phones. If it's already in your hand, begin to document. Turn on the video, right? Turn on the video. Start to document, and you need to document several things. Number one, what time is it? Date, time. Number two, where are you? Right? And I know these things may seem a little bit odd, but when you look at this in retrospect, you need to paint the story, and you need to create the narrative, and you need to be clear and concise. It's literally the opposite side of the coin. If this officer is not going to be professional, and they are not going to pay you the courtesy of treating you like a citizen that actually deserves respect, and you've given them no reason to escalate, you now basically kind of have to become the investigator. You basically now have to say, all right, I need to start to document everything that's going on. I need to document where I am. I need to document what time it is. I need to document who I am with. I need to document whom I am dealing with. And then I also need to document what this is. Is this a traffic stop? Or was this one of those things where I know there's something else going on here, and maybe not everything's on the up and up, but I want to prove that I have nothing to do with what may be going on just because I'm in this vehicle. Right?
Right.
So, document. Once you document, the best thing for you to do is comply. Try your best to get out of that traffic stop. Right? If they want to, they ask you for your ID, they ask you for this, they ask you for that. You provide them what they need, and do not engage in an argument. Basically, you have to take it upon yourself now to not escalate the situation, because at this very moment, this officer things could go south, and next thing you know, you could be the next thing on the news.
Right.
Or not. Right?
True.
Because had there not been cameras and witnesses for George Floyd, do you think we would have really known about this?
Not at all.
No. No.
So
and it's happened before. It just gets buried.
Yeah, and then when it comes to like, you can go ahead.
No, just understand that it's a delicate situation. So you need to make sure that you document, number one, and number two, from that point, it's also good to let the officer know in a manner that's respectful. Officer, just let you know, I'm documenting this. You know, I'm recording this, and this does two things, right? It lets them know. Ooh, okay, now I am on camera. So if I didn't know that before, maybe I need to correct my tune.
Right.
And B, it lets them know that, ooh, this may go further than this traffic stop. I need to, maybe I want to change how I was going to interact with this individual before. For cops that are on the up and up, right? For cops that police properly, this was almost like flattering for us. I have when I wore the badge, there was no problem. Film me all day, and just make sure you get my good side, which is the right side. You know, it's just better on that side. But like, film me all day. Make sure you get my name and my badge. You know, because at the end of the day, I have no worries about me doing anything that is wrong or illegal, because that's just not what I do. I am a police officer. I swore to uphold this. So film me all day.
Yeah.
Just hope you have enough, you know, I hope you have enough storage for it. But for the ones that are not on the up and up, when you film them, it sometimes stops them in their tracks.
Yeah. And what, just kind of offbeat, but what about like when police officers turn off the camera? Is there any type of repercussions or policy that shouldn't happen?
So you mean for their body cam?
Yeah.
Mm,
We can pass the question if necessary.
No. For me, it's difficult for me to speak to it because I never wore a body cam.
Oh, okay.
I was there during I exited out of state and local law enforcement at the time that body cams were just getting to be a big thing. So I never actually wore a body cam. However, in the event that you have a law enforcement officer that is turning off their body cam and still going to engage with you, that would give me a red flag.
Yeah.
What is it that is about to transpire that you do not want documented? Right? Because when that video stops, what scales back, and basically in a court of law, right? What reigns supreme? Over an actual eyewitness that says, I can attest to I saw X, Y, and Z. What reigns supreme? Video.
I was gonna say that, yeah.
Video. As long as video can tell the whole story, or at least some part of the story, video is going to be taken at face value. It will be taken at face value over a witness's statement and over an actual written statement. But once that video is gone, it then downgrades to the strongest piece of evidence is going to be, as long as there's no other other evidence to include other things that like physical evidence and other things that would come after the fact. But the next thing that steps down in terms of accounts of what happened is going to be the written statement of the law enforcement officer. The power of the pen.
Okay.
So what they say is going to be taken into account, and that's going to be taken into account and weighed at more value than what you say transpired.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I want to caveat all of this, in which I said, I am not a lawyer, right? I do not pretend to be a lawyer, and I do not practice law. So anything that I disclose during this entire thing is basically based upon my own opinion of almost a decade in law enforcement and a lifetime of being a black man.
Word.
Understood.
Appreciate that. And I do have one more. It's like, what makes me nervous is like, when you have a video, then you have that strong case. But if you don't have a video, then it's like, it's really up in the air. And it comes to, like you said, the power of the pen. and
Mhm.
I'm sure officers they're able to write a report in a way it suits them, but we don't have the
Sure.
right evidence on our side. Being a video being the most powerful one, is
Mhm.
is there any type of suggestions, or how can we really win that battle?
So here's another tactic that you can use, right? And this is all very dependent. Like for me, I always drive, even though I used to be a law enforcement officer. That does not give me a pass. When I used to be a cop, as soon as I took off the uniform, I am a
Right.
black man. Like it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I am still a black man. Underneath the badge and everything else, I am still a black man. So I would always ride with my phone out in plain view. And a tactic that I have used before is when I'll give you an example. I was being pulled over by an unmarked car. I thought it was odd because I didn't recognize them. I usually can recognize unmarked cars, but I was being pulled over by this unmarked car, and something didn't sit right in my stomach about it. So what I did is I called 911. And I said, I am being pulled over by this car. I am just calling to let you know that I am complying. I am pulling over at this location. I am in this car. I am this. I gave my actual physical description. I am this male, right? I am this
Right.
black male wearing this clothing. And could you please start a marked unit, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, what that does is that does several things. Number one is it puts it on record to dispatch. Dispatch's calls are recorded. So now there's a record. I'm being engaged by a law enforcement officer at this location, right? You could even go on and say I'm uncomfortable. I don't know who this is. I don't know if this is actually law enforcement, but this is where I am, right? So I'm being engaged by this law enforcement officer, or what I believe to be a law enforcement officer. That puts on the record, number one. Number two, when you ask for a second unit, that now gives you another witness, right?
Yeah.
So bad apples are usually identified rather quickly. If you work with a bad apple, a lot of people don't want to associate with them because they know it's only a matter of time before they get hemmed up by IA, or they get into a bad shooting, or they do something like what happened to George Floyd. So when they have to come and back up these other, when they back up another officer, if it's a bad apple, you can almost guarantee that second officer is probably going to say, listen, I don't try any funny business when I'm here. So I don't want to be involved in anything that you have going on. I don't even like you. So let's have this traffic stop be on the up and up. Okay? Do what you got to do. Give this man a citation and let's keep it rolling. Or give him a warning or whatever it is that you pulled him over for and let's keep it rolling. And at that moment, that officer, whoever pulled you over, is now basically on notice. There's somebody else here.
Yeah. I mean, that's good to
Right?
hear. Like, it was a form of accountability amongst police officers. Is that something that you saw?
There is 100% accountability amongst police officers. It's just birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah.
There were times when I was in law enforcement where if you handled the call that wasn't proper, right, and it never would get to the point of somebody being murdered, right? Because at that point, it's my duty as a law enforcement officer to stop you. You have completely stepped outside of the realm of being a police officer and have decided that you now want to be a criminal. Regardless of what this man did, if you want to go that route, just know that I am going to step in. So there have been plenty of times that I've seen when something has occurred on a stop or on a call, and other officers have stepped in, and that has caused a divide. And sometimes that divide was handled after the shift in the garage by just a scuffle. Like literally, do not behave like that on a traffic stop. Do not behave like that, period. And a lot of times it's like, I'm going to report you to internal affairs. And a lot of people don't like that.
Yeah, I believe that. Imagine.
Yeah, I got a question.
Yep. Achille,
Yeah.
one thing that kind of spoke out to me was that you said there's a lot of good cops and there are just
Yeah.
a few bad apples.
Yep.
What do you think needs to be done to repair the relationship between police and their communities? Just some ideas from you.
Oof, that's a deep one, right? So, all right, here we go. There are several things that need to occur. To start with, let's start at the very beginning, right? Law enforcement, period, has not had the best of relationships with the Black community. Let's just get that out there in the open.
From the Genesis.
We know this, okay?
Right.
Law enforcement in the South started as slave hunters, right? Slave recovery. That's how it began in the South. It was something different in the North, but at the end of the day, it was never a rosy relationship with the African American community, right? So let's just get that out in the open. Going forward from here, because we know that the system is broken for African Americans, right? Going forward, how can we correct a broken system or a system that has been built off of oppressing the African American community? How do we fix this? It's not like we're going to burn it all completely down, right? As much as it would be easy to just hit the reset button, that's not possible. So what is possible is hard work. It's going to take a lot. And it's going to take politicians, it's going to take lawyers, and it's going to take a complete revamp of some police departments. And a lot of people aren't going to hear that, but it's the truth. And it starts with the very beginning. It's actually almost a full circle. So let's start at the very beginning. It starts with hiring, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a police department of most of you, let's just say 75% of your city, and these are just random numbers, 75% of your city is African American, right? And then let's just say, another 10% is other minorities, right? That's now 80% minority. And then another 20%, which brings you to the 100, are Caucasian. Why does your police department look like it's 97% Caucasian?
That's a great question.
Hello?
Yeah.
Right. So the point is, change your hiring practices. Stop going to the neighboring states and reaching out and trying to find Caucasian males and Caucasians from rural areas of neighboring states, and then asking them to come down to this city and police the African American community. A lot of these people have not even seen an African American in the flesh before, right? Or if they did, there would be they may have one or two friends, and now you're telling them that they have to go, that you want them to go and police the African American community?
Right.
What did you think was going to happen? You're already putting them in an uncomfortable position, and you're not giving them the training to recognize, I need to approach these interactions without any bias, even though I don't really know how to interact with an African Americans or any minority for that matter, right? So change your hiring practices. Stop doing that where you go outside of your community. Look inside of your community. There are people there that would make outstanding cops. It's just you need to change your hiring practices, do the hard work, and find them. So that's number one. Number two, stop hiring family members of racist cops, right? I'm not
Yeah.
going to say stop hiring family members of cops. That's not the situation at all. I know generations of cops that are outstanding law enforcement officers. I mean, like cream of the crop.
Yeah.
White, black, Asian, you name it, cream of the crop. But when you have a bad apple, let's just say you have the officer that killed George Floyd, right? Say he recommends his son or his brother, cousin to be a police officer on that police department and has 18 complaints, and some of them, a lot of them are claiming that he has racist policing activities. I don't know if that's the actual situation, but let's just say that's the situation. Why would you offer his brother, cousin, recommendation a position on the police force?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Birds of a feather flock together.
I
I
like
think
that point.
you should only allow the best of your officers, right? And when I say the best of your officers, that's actually the majority of the police department. It's just the ones that don't have egregious offenses in their records. Allow them to submit candidates, and then give them scrutiny. Scrutinize them the same way that you would a regular candidate off the street. Just because they get a pass or a blessing from and a recommendation from somebody that works there does not mean that they can skirt by and walk right into the police department.
Yeah.
Yes, their recommendation will be taken into consideration, but the processes should still be in place, right? So hiring, who you bring into the department is crucial because it also has an effect on how they are going to interact with that community, right? If I'm from the community, or if I'm from at least the same city, and I have pride in that city, you can expect for me to have some sort of pride in the way that I police. Yeah. If I am African American or I am a minority and I'm policing in a minority neighborhood, you can expect for me to show up on a call or show up and do a traffic stop and treat people with respect. Because when I look at an African American woman, I see my sister, my mom, my aunt, right? I see someone that I know. I see someone, there's a parallel there. Not someone where I'm like, oh, I have never interacted with an African American woman or man before, so this is completely out of my wheelhouse. Right? That's true. The next thing is going to be training. Training is crucial because it doesn't really matter who you are, black, white, any other race, right? Training for being a law enforcement officer is and should be hard.
Yeah.
How do you train someone to deal with all of the circumstances that a law enforcement officer is thrown? It's a lot of hard work, and a lot of it is learned on the job. But there needs to be fundamentals that are embedded in training. So number one would be race training, right? Say you have some candidates that come up from out of town, and they've heard that Baltimore is, where it's at, and they want to get a lot of experience, and they really don't have too much interaction with any minorities because they come from a majority of Caucasian town, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Like, say they come from this demographic, and they want to police here because they want to get the experience. Sure. Just understand, they need to go through some sort of race training, some sort of training that teaches them and gives them some sort of understanding and background of the neighborhoods that they're going to be policing, so that they can not police with sympathy, but police with empathy. Right? A good cop polices with compassion. So that's one thing, race training. Second thing is going to be as far as training goes. Second thing, training for physical fitness. Right? I think training for physical fitness is imperative because when I work the street, and just to be clear, I work the Western District of Baltimore City. When I worked the street, there was I almost guarantee that at some point throughout a week, I was going to be in a knockdown, drag-out fight. Right?
Mhm.
Somebody was going to just feel that they didn't want to go to jail today, or that they got caught committing a crime and that they weren't going to go to jail today, or whatever the situation was, and it was going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. Could it have escalated to the point of me utilizing my firearm? Probably. But because of my confidence in my physical ability, it never did.
Yeah.
I was a cop for 8 years. I never had one complaint. And I know a lot of other cops like that as well. Why? Because we're able to handle situations without escalating to the pinnacle of use of force. And a lot of that depends on your confidence and your physical ability. If you have a suspect or if you have somebody that you're dealing with, and mind you, being black is not a threat, which kind of always goes right back to the ideology of if you're going to hire people that have never dealt with African Americans before, and they may feel a little uncomfortable being around black people, what's it going to be like when they have an actual suspect that they actually have to detain? If they feel that their physical capability is not up to task, they're going to go for the quote-unquote almighty equalizer. And that is not the necessary steps to take. My skin does not make me more of a threat because you're ill-prepared for an actual physical confrontation, which is part of your job, does not make me more of a threat. Right? So I think ingraining physical fitness and actually requiring law enforcement officers and giving them the time, because don't get me wrong, a lot of cops like to work out.
Yeah.
I was one of them. But finding the time to do so was rough. I mean, it's like you work 8, 12 hours, and then you get off, and then all you really want to do is go to sleep. And then you get up, and maybe you get to go work out, right? If you're dedicated, you definitely go work out, and you steal that time from somewhere else. But heaven forbid you have a family, because now you're going to steal that time from your family. Give cops and law enforcement officers time to work out. Give them time to exercise. It does a multitude of things.
Rest.
De-stresses them, keeps them healthy, and keeps them confident in their physical ability. Right?
Right.
And then the last two are kind of one and the same.
Achilles?
Communication. Yeah, sorry.
Yep. I just wanted to stay on the physical fitness side of it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Do you guys have a physical test, like either annually or semi-annually?
So each department's different, right? Each department is different. So when I speak about this, I only speak about the departments that I know of, right? So each department is different, but it's from what I've seen, it's pretty parallel across a lot of the country. So for the departments that I've been a part of, they do have an entry-level exam, and usually this entry-level exam is somewhat rigorous. As hiring standards lax, so do the physical fitness requirements. But usually they get trained up and have to do a lot of physical fitness and conditioning during the academy. So usually at their graduation point, when they graduate the academy, they're usually at the pinnacle of their physical fitness. I mean, for the vast majority.
Okay.
They're usually at the pinnacle. And then from that point on, because you literally for months on end had actual physical fitness built in to your day, every day. Sometimes unforeseen because your class got in trouble and now you guys are doing front leaning rest for, whoever knows how long until the instructors get tired. But physical fitness is part of your day. And then all of a sudden you're out on the street and now you're running and gunning for 8, 10, 12 hours, and that physical fitness is on you. And some people don't have the ability to structure that into their lives post work. If they didn't do it before the academy and just did it enough to pass the test, why do you think they're going to continue afterwards? So I think it should be instituted that, listen, you need to train. You need to work out.
Understood.
And then one of the last things, it's two things, but they're kind of bundled into the same thing. Actually, so this one is actually kind of along the lines of physical fitness, de-escalation, training law enforcement officers, and de-escalation. And when I say all of these things, I just want to reiterate that a lot of these things are already in place. Right. It's just that they need to be ramped up, right? Put more effort into training people in de-escalation, right? The most powerful tool that a cop has at their disposal, what do you think it is?
I'm going to either say their mind or their gun.
Their voice.
Yeah. Okay.
Their voice.
Yeah.
Their voice. The ability to communicate. Mm-hmm. That is the most effective part of law enforcement. So if your ability to communicate and take a situation from being super tense, threats are imminent, violence is imminent, but you can walk it down just from engaging with somebody verbally, that's power.
Yeah.
And that is what law enforcement is that's what a lot of good cops are able to do. You ever see those videos where you see somebody that's like they're hell bent on committing suicide, and then you see a cop come up and just talk to them? Right. That is your most powerful tool. No gun is going to solve that. No taser, no mace, no pepper spray, no canine. Even though I do love the canines, but none of them are going to say that. None of them are going to do that. What is going to do that is your ability to de-escalate a situation. So, right, de-escalation is huge, and de-escalation pairs with communication. And it's kind of like a continuum. Yeah. Being physically fit enough to know that you can take on a threat if there is one, but also having the ability to know that you can de-escalate a threat without the actual use of force if that situation presents itself. And you can do that through communication. Yeah. And the other side of communication is how do we repair the relationship between police officers and the community? You provide all these tools and training and change the hiring standards and all of these things for cops, but you also have them re-engage in the community. Re-engage in the community. Community policing is important. I'm going to say it again. Community policing is important.
Yes.
Policing without community policing creates problems. Right? Mm-hmm. When I was on the street, when I was a young pup that just came out the academy, I was told by one of the cops I respect the most. He wasn't even my training officer, but he would always take me to the side and tell me, when you put the cuffs on, unless it's a dire situation where somebody's life is in danger or something else, when you put the cuffs on, you have failed as a cop. Now, why is that? Because that means you failed to de-escalate the situation and find the solution. Community policing does not mean running through and locking up the whole community. Policing does not mean, getting those stats, and that's something I'm going to come to next, getting those stats so that you can make your sergeant, lieutenant, captain, commander look good. No. Policing is about keeping the community safe, period. And in order to keep the community safe, you have to be in the community. Take the time, get out of your squad car. Don't sit there and roll through the streets in your squad car and never open the door and get out and speak to people.
Right.
No, pull up to the block, Step out the car and let people know that you're a human being. Every time you engage with somebody, it doesn't have to be yelling and you do this and you do that. No, take a different tone. Hearts and minds. Hearts and minds. If the military can do it, why haven't we been pushing it?
Yeah.
Hearts and minds. That's what matters.
Quick question: how many hours did it take to get to become a police officer? Like when you go through training, I seen a post on Instagram and it was I don't know if it was really true or not.
You want to break it into hours?
Well, because I saw something
Right,
like barbers, they spend more time or hours getting their certification than a police officer to become a police officer. I don't know if that was true or not.
So here's the thing.
So check this out. In our latest episode, we had our good brother Akilas on, who's an ex-cop. It went a little bit longer than expected, but it was way too much good information not to share. So we'll be dropping a part 2 next Friday. We'll be continuing that conversation and talking about the existence of police quotas, the racial relationships within our communities, and more. Follow us on IG and Facebook at WGB Podcast and subscribe on YouTube. Love and peace, fam. We out.